Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Justice, and today we're going to be ranking all of Ryan Murphy's horror TV shows. Now, Ryan Murphy is someone who's been massively influential on TV as a whole, I would say. The man literally just has to snap his fingers and FX comes running to whatever project he wants to do. Not saying that all those projects end up being that good, but he does have a lot of very entertaining shows, and the numbers are there. There's a reason why all these studios were fighting over him. I mean, FX was quaking in its boots even when Netflix tried buying the man out. But he is very largely responsible, in my opinion, of changing what horror looks like in the TV landscape and making it more accessible to modern audiences. And I also think that he did the same thing with queer storytelling, because a lot of his shows do include a lot of queer storytelling. And it was doing that even before it was becoming a huge thing. I mean, not horror, but look at Glee. Like, the fact that that was able to blow up in such a mainstream setting. There's a reason why this guy is known to this day. I even say that a lot of people get annoyed by this. In fact, I've seen other reviews where people talk about it, how much he chooses to sexualize men in his shows. In his horror shows, it doesn't per se bother me that much. I mean, it probably helps that I'm a gay man, but like, it doesn't bother me, honestly, because women had to be objectified in horror for how long. So I really do feel like if you're upset about seeing a little bit or a lot of it of man-ass, then like maybe get over yourself. His take on the horror genre too, I would say, is very much a soap opera leaning into like a melodrama. It is very over the top and very campy, but that's all a part of the fun of his projects, at least the ones that do land. To boot, all these shows have like phenomenal actors across the board. I mean, you get the likes of like Evan Peters and like Sarah Paulson before they even blew up starting out in his shows, and then so many others and already big actors showing up in so many of these series. The Murphyverse is such a great place to be in because this catalog of actors appears constantly in all of his projects. So you really get to get used to like all these familiar faces, and that's something that I really do love about all of his projects, is all these actors that we get to see time and time and time again, being able to play off of each other, playing different roles, sometimes even like similar characters, but like that's completely okay because when they're typecasted, like it is done perfectly well. The main critique that I can give to him is that when he does strike a match and gets fire, it is amazing. And I would even say that some of it will stand the test of time as being classic television, whereas he has other projects where I feel like just completely dropped the ball and are a very obvious cash grab. But we're going to get into all of that and all those details. But with that little bit of a spiel out of the way, let's get on to this ranking. Now, coming in at number 7, and I have no clue if this is a hot take or not, but it is the Netflix show The Watcher. I don't even really consider this series horror personally. I'm not trying to gatekeep or anything by any means. It just has never felt like a horror show to me, at least what I did see of it. It is the only one of the shows on this list that I didn't finish all the way through, so that could partly be my bad, but I just genuinely could not get into it. Like I said a second ago with like the roster of actors that you get to know, a lot of them don't appear in this series. And yes, you do have some amazing actors that do show up in this show. I mean, Naomi Watts, Jennifer Coolidge, Mia Farrow, all in one series. Like, on paper, sign me up, man, but like, I just wasn't into the mystery of this series as this family moves into this suburban neighborhood and starts getting these letters that are extremely menacing, trying to get them to leave the house. I just wasn't pulled into the concept. I get that it's based on a true story, but I don't think it was done well. And it was trying to be a dark comedy, but I don't think it leaned into it in all the best ways. Really don't have much to say, so I'm not going to spend that long talking about this. The only reason I even put The Watcher on this list is because when I looked up his horror shows, this came up as one of them, which, like I said, not gatekeeping, but like, it just does not feel like horror to me. It just feels more like a dark comedy thriller that doesn't land. It's just very forgettable. And if it weren't a Ryan Murphy project, I don't even think I would even remember or recall it. at all, and that's exactly why it's going to fall at the bottom of my list. Now, coming in at sixth place is American Horror Story. I'm just screwing with you, okay? You don't have to spit out your coffee. You're good, man. No, what comes in at sixth place is American Horror Stories, the spinoff to American Horror Story. And this show had so much potential to me. I was really excited when I heard about it because American Horror Story is one of my all-time favorite shows. I guess spoiler for later in this ranking. But I was super excited about this because a huge problem he has with American Horror Story is, even though I love it, I will admit that he has a very hard time ending his stories. He creates all these really interesting threads to follow throughout the series or the season. Almost never do those threads come together in like this cohesive story by the end. And I thought that by this episodic anthology format instead of a season-long anthology format, that he would be able to get that down, come up with the idea for a story and a good ending by the end of the episode. I was sorely mistaken. This series just leaves me wanting more. There's very few episodes that I think are genuinely good. Even then, I don't even know if I would recommend them to you because I don't know if you would be into them not being an American Horror Story fan. I just don't think it's done well. And like when this series shines its best is when it steps away from the AHS universe and tries to do its own things. That's where I think this show suffers and falls the most at, is the seasons where they try to have episodes that tie into the main series. It takes away from it feeling like this episodic anthology series, especially the first season. I mean, the first season only has 7 episodes, and you have 3 of those episodes going back to the murder house in a half-baked story with bad writing and even worse acting, which I don't even know if I can blame the actors for it, because the writing was just so atrocious and sloppy and messy. So those are like the worst aspects of this series. And Ryan Murphy has a tendency of doing these stunt castings where he hires like really like famous celebrities to be in his series. And the stunt casting done in this either bordered on not being good at all or left me wanting more and wanting them to be in the actual main show and having more than just one episode to work with the slop they were handed. I mean, how can you get Alicia Silverstone to be in your show and then do nothing with her and put her in one of the most forgettable episodes? Same goes for Debbie Ryan. I think she would be phenomenal in the main series. Can you imagine, like, in a really campy season, like Debbie Ryan being able to pinball off of Leslie Gore or like Billy Ward? Like, that would be hilarious. Sign me up. I want that. But no, instead they gave her a throwaway episode that just wasn't that good. And that's why this series falls so low for me, is because, like I said, there's just very few episodes that I do think are genuinely good. And if you want to cherry pick, I guess, a couple of the episodes that I do like, I would recommend episodes Necro, Feral, Tapeworm, and Facelift. I think those are all really fun episodes. I enjoyed those ones. But overall, when you only have like 4 episodes in over 3 seasons of television that I think are genuinely good and the rest are just either forgettable or bad, then like, what are you doing? Like, honestly, I don't think this show should be going anymore. There hasn't been any word that there's going to be a season 4, and I really don't think it needs a season 4. Like, let's just kill it. Like, it was dead on arrival from the get-go. Like, let's just move on, Ryan. Now, coming in at 5th place is going to be Grotesquerie. It stars Niecy Nash, who plays Lois, and this show is very, very heavily inspired by Seven, and at many points, I think the inspiration borders on just being a knockoff and like pale imitation, because I don't think this series has done that well. And I know that we are already 3 series into this ranking, and I sound very, very negative, and I do apologize for that. I promise I'm going to be saying some positive stuff here in a second. But this show just seemed like so much wasted potential to me. Like I said, you have Niecy Nash playing the lead character in this series, and she just eats the screen. I think she does such a phenomenal job. She was the main reason I was able to finish this series, because of just how good she is in it. And I love seeing her as this leading lady. I think she did a really good job with that. And like, I had high hopes for this series. The marketing campaign for it reminded me of earlier American Horror Story with like all the ominous little teasers, the lineup of posters they did for it. It just felt like the early seasons of American Horror Story to me. And I thought maybe it'd be a return to form, that since this is a new show, Ryan would be more all hands on deck than he is with like the newer seasons of AHS. But that's not the case here. I think there's some very, very questionable writing decisions that were done throughout this series. For one, as much as I like Niecy Nash, and like I said, she is the main reason I was able to finish this series, her character isn't likable. And the same can be said about pretty much all of the characters in the show. They're not likable characters, and you really don't get to know any of them either because of the god-awful twist in this show. In fact, if you don't want to be spoiled, like I would say skip forward like 30, 45 seconds, but the first 7 episodes, you find out at the end of the 7th one that it was all a coma dream, that everything that happened in those 7 episodes did not matter. So yeah, and it's a 10 episode season. So the last 3 episodes, you're seeing the actual story. Like, tell me, how is that a good writing choice at all? How does that make your audience trust what you're showing them is actually real? It is the biggest trope that people roll their eyes at, is it was all a dream. And they hinged their biggest twist in the series on that. When the show was releasing weekly, I watched it up to that episode and I had to stop because I was so freaking pissed about that twist. I thought it was very poorly done, and it took me a while to actually go back and finish the season. But even then, when I did finish it, the way that the show ends is very lackluster. It's not much of a cliffhanger. It just kind of feels like the end of an episode and you're waiting for the next one. It doesn't feel like the culmination of the whole season that's going to be building up to the next. It just kind of like fell off like every other episode did. So like, if it doesn't get another season, like I don't think there's going to be much rewatchability with this show. But like, also, I don't know if it deserves a second season because, like I said, it lost its trust with me anyways about like where it's going. Like, if I tune in to the second season, it's only going to be because of Niecy Nash's performance in the show. I just think overall it was a huge misstep and a huge missed opportunity because there was stuff I liked about it. I did think the acting across the board wasn't that bad at all. In fact, even his stunt casting in this, I know a lot of people have talked smack about it, but I really did genuinely believe that Travis Kelce really didn't do that bad in the show, or anywhere near as bad anyways that people made it sound like he did. I don't think he is an Oscar-winning actor by any means. I've seen like way, way, way worse stunt casting in his other shows, so I am not upset about it. Like, at least he could hold the scene decently well, and it didn't pull me out of it seeing him on the screen. So overall, like, Grotesquerie isn't something that I would recommend, really. Unless you're a diehard Ryan Murphy fan, then like, yeah, go ahead, give it a watch. But otherwise, like, I would just say skip it. It's not that good, and the twists in it leave a lot to be desired. So if you decide not to watch this project, I totally get it. Now, coming in at 4th place, and this show, very popular, but also very controversial, is Netflix's Monster. This show is very problematic. I'm not going to front with you and say it isn't. That also doesn't mean that I wasn't entertained by it. I think if you separate it from the real events that they're based off of, it is a very good show if you look at it as just being fiction. But that's where it also hangs me up at, is because it is not just a work of fiction, and it feels very gratuitous at times. Technically, I don't even know if most people would consider this a horror series, but because the way they handle the killers in it, I personally would take it as that. I think that instead of doing a docudrama style like most films do, or shows when they're covering actual killers, they go very, very hardcore. It's the way that it like embellishes on reality of like what really happened, versus twisting a very true story into like this warped, like dark fantasy almost. And like, it does give me a little bit of an ick when I actually think about it when watching the series. You have 2 different scenes in the first season of Dahmer alone, where you have Dahmer drinking blood in his bathroom that he stole from the hospital, which, mind you, never happened. Then you have, at the end, John Wayne Gacy drowning a guy in the bathtub with his clown makeup on, which also never happened. Gacy never wore the makeup while killing people, which I get that they were trying to make these figures look more horrifying because it makes for good television. And I will admit, like, it did give me the heebie-jeebies. It made me uncomfortable. In fact, there's been other docudrama series that have done similar things that I think are some of the most frightening moments in any film, and they're not even horror. Like, even look at Extremely Wicked, Shockingly Evil, and Vile with Zac Efron. That scene where he writes hacksaw in the condensation on the glass, like, that scene gave me chills. It is so horrifying, and it didn't happen. Where that differs for me is that movie didn't feel gratuitous when it was delivering it to me. It didn't give me an ick like this one did. And Dahmer and Gacy both honestly did some pretty disgusting yet horrible things. I don't think there was anything you needed to embellish to make them look worse than they already do and make them any more horrifying than they already are. I really don't think you need to do that. But aside from these negatives that I'm saying, you do have amazing performances done in this series. This is where, again, Niecy Nash appeared in the show, and I didn't know she could act in a serious role. I'd only ever seen her in Scream Queens previously to this, so when I initially heard about her being in this, like, horror drama thriller, I didn't think she was gonna do good. I kind of raised an eyebrow to it, because I very much could only imagine her as, like, Denise Hempfield.
If you are in danger, scream Denise Hempfield's name real loud. I will come a-running. Now, let's just say you scream Denise Hempfield's name and I do not come a-running. That means I'm not on the premises. Okay, in that case, call 1-866-KLJ-0199. Okay, I will be notified immediately and come a-running.
And then Evan Peters as Dahmer. He gives such a chilling and horrifying performance. Like, it is easily one of the best roles of his. In fact, one of my favorite roles of his altogether. Even his performances in, like, American Horror Story, I don't think come anywhere near his portrayal of Dahmer. I think he did a really, really good job with it. And the second season too, it follows the Menendez brothers. I don't think the second season is as tight as the first season, but it is still another really, really good season with, again, a lot of embellishments on what actually happened. But we're not going to spend the whole video talking about that. I really do think Nicholas Alexander Chavez and Cooper Koch did a really good job playing the brothers. I think the chemistry between the two actors was very believable throughout the entire series, and I can see why, again, this season was a success, just like Dahmer. That's something that I'll say is really interesting about this anthology series, is it does have a lot of twists and turns, and it always makes you want to watch the next episode. Like, this entire series is very bingeable. The only reason that it falls this low on the list, like I said, is because there is a part of it that inherently gives me, like, a little bit of an ick. Now, coming in third place is Ratched. This show is easily one of the biggest casualties in television that we got during the pandemic. The show got so much praise for the acting, the stylization, the writing, and rightfully so. After the pandemic, all of the actors that were in it went on to other projects, other contracts, and they just weren't able to come back for the show, which really is such a shame because, again, like I said, for Evan Peters doing a phenomenal job Dahmer, Sarah Paulson does the exact same thing here with Ratched, and I am just saying, if that woman can make a scene of her coworker stealing her peach from the staff bridge into one of the most iconic scenes in the series, that woman can do most anything.
Sorry.
You are not sorry, but you will be.
What? What are you gonna do about it? What, are you deaf?
No. Just thinking of all the things I'm going to do about it.
The idea of this show, though, was to create a prequel series for the film One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, which I have never seen, so I can't reference of, like, how good of a prequel series it really is. But this series seems to be very much in the same breath of, like, what Bates Motel was for Psycho. The single season we did get of this, though, did feel like American Horror Story back in its heyday. The acting, the stylization, the writing, it was just all super tight and very, very well done. It had me yearning for more, and I would have watched more if we got more. And it truly did feel like a return to form for Ryan Murphy. Because it got canceled, we're never really going to know where the show would have ended up and like what the bigger picture of it was. And there's this huge question mark over the ending of what could have been. So that's why it's hard for me to rank this any higher because of that, because that really does loom over this entire series. What we did get though was one season of stellar television, and if you do like shows like American Horror Story and somehow missed this, then I would heavily recommend it. And most people have Netflix, so like, what are you doing? If you have Netflix, go watch it. Now, coming in second place is Scream Queens, and the best way to describe this show is iconic. Like, there is no other word for it. Just completely iconic and insanely quotable. Imagine Scary Movie as a series and you have Scream Queens. And I think Ryan did a really good job of mashing his style of camp and horror together in this series. It really did feel like a hybrid of his two shows, Glee and American Horror Story. It really did feel like they put both those shows in a blender, and Scream Queens was the byproduct. Its first season is perfect. I don't really have any problems with it. The mystery elements are really good. The humor in it is really entertaining, and there are plenty of funny and likable characters throughout the series. The second season takes a little bit of a nosedive, so like the first season does do a lot of the legwork for why I have this up there so high. But you have so many amazing actors throughout the show, and it is hard for me to not list all of them because we would be here for a while, but to state a few, you have like returning actors of his, like Billy Lord debuting for him, you have Emma Roberts coming back, and then even for like his stunt casting, he did some really, really good picks here. You have Jamie Lee Curtis, who plays phenomenally. She is easily one of the most iconic characters in this show, and she is so freaking funny, but I don't think you need me to tell you that.
You are a disgrace.
And you have Ariana Grande, which R.I.P. She should have been in the show way more than like what she ended up being, but I digress from that point. You even got the likes of Glenn Powell and Keke Palmer before they blew up, which I just think is amazing. In retrospect, it just makes the series that much greater, and I have so much love for it. It came out when I was in high school, and I was absolutely obsessed with the show. I would quote it all the time. What ultimately holds this series back for me is it is only 2 seasons of television, and though I am in the minority and I don't mind the second season, I'm also not going to front you and say it is anywhere near as good as that first season. There is a lot of that second season that are just a copy paste of what happened in the previous one. The only difference is they took the setting from a college campus to a hospital. Like, need I say more? Another thing that they kind of botched in that second season was the killer reveal. I was on the edge of my seat that first season trying to figure out who the killer could possibly be. The second season, they didn't do that. You figure out who the killer is like halfway through the season, and you have the whole rest of the season where all of your main characters don't know who the killer is, but the entire audience knows. So the whole mystery aspect is just completely obliterated, and the best part of the show, the whodunit, is already answered for you. So it completely knocked the season off the rails, and I can see why it didn't last any longer, because it was very sloppily done, and I do think it was very heavily just slapped together. But one thing I do have to admit is I was in love with the casting of John Stamos in that season. Him and Glenn Powell bounce off of each other is some of the most funny and memorable moments, even though they're very far in between scenes. It is something that I always enjoy going back to when I rewatch the series. And for being cable television, the kills in the show are actually not that bad. I think everybody already knows the deaf Taylor Swift character getting ran over by a lawnmower. I think that's a really fun kill. There's even a kill in the second season where this girl like has all of her blood drained out of her through IV bags. And they did a really, really good job expressing the horror throughout the entire series. Anyways, we're gonna jump to my first place, and unsurprisingly to anyone who's seen any of my videos before, it is American Horror Story. Now, I'm not gonna spend too long talking about this because I really could. In fact, I have a 2-part ranking where I went in like pretty much did a review for each individual season. So if you guys want to watch that and hear a lot of thoughts in depth about particular seasons, then go to my channel. I have those videos up. What I will say about it is, sure, the last few seasons have not been that good. In fact, the last 2 seasons are some of my least favorite seasons in the entire series. But those first few seasons of the show are just such perfect television that there's nowhere else that I could have ranked the show other than first place. This was my introduction to Ryan Murphy's shows. A lot of people's introduction was Glee. American Horror Story was how I found him, and I was definitely watching this series way too young. And too, some of the mainstays in this series, like Evan Peters, Jessica Lange, Sarah Paulson, these were my introductions to these actors, and they eat the screen in every season that they appear in, and the roles they played are clear career highlights, at least for me anyways. Ryan Murphy references so many classic themes of the genre. In fact, I would describe this whole series as being a love letter to the horror genre. So much of the style and storytelling in it is referential of past horror films that transcend the genre or shaped the genre. I mean, the whole season, Freak Show, inspired by 1932's Freaks, or the style of Hotel is completely inspired from Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. There's so much that big horror fans can see in this show. The show is constantly changing things up, and every season, like I said, it just feels like a love letter to the genre. And my all-time favorite season, which I feel like this is probably a hot take, is 1984, and that is the best way to describe that season, is a love letter, because it looks back at the 80s slasher film, and that is my favorite decade of horror, is the 80s slasher. Just something about those movies feel really cozy and homey to me, and I feel like they captured that so perfectly well in that season. But I'm gonna stop myself from gushing about that, because I gushed about that way too much in my ranking. Personally, for me, the magic hasn't hit the same since that season, which that's season 9. So I can find love like the first 9 seasons for each one. So I feel like that's pretty damn good. But the magic hasn't been the same since that season, but because of those earlier seasons, especially the first 4 seasons, there's nowhere else I could have put this show at on my list. This show, I do think, genuinely changed the landscape for horror television and the anthology format for TV. I think that it was very ahead of its time when it came out. It is a masterclass on what horror television could be and can be. Anyways, that sums up my ranking for Ryan Murphy's horror TV shows. You guys should let me know if you disagree with anything I said down in the comments below. And let me know what your guys' rankings are and like what your opinions are on his shows or him. There's a lot of stuff I didn't get into in this video. There's been a lot of rumors about like toxic sets on his shows, which I wouldn't be surprised, especially given context for how things look in some of these series. So if you guys have thoughts on that too, like talk about that in the comments. And if you guys have any other recommendations for future shows or movies you want me to cover, let me know that down in the comments below too. I would love to hear them. I'm always looking for ideas for more content. A little bit of a channel update, and I saved it for the end of the video. So if you stuck around this long, like, hey there. I know I posted a little bit late. I mentioned that I went to that Kesha concert, which, by the way, update, iconic. The girl better have the album of the summer for period. Like, point end discussion right there. Aside from that though, my posting on the channel might get a little more sparse here in the future. I am in the process of moving, hence the very, very bare bones thing I got going for a set right now. I'm not sure how long it's gonna take. Things are kind of like floating right now. So I'm still gonna be here, just content may not be coming out as often or as much, but I don't plan on going anywhere, and I would love if you guys stuck around. Anyways, with that little bit of an update out of the way, this has been Justice, and I really hope to catch you guys on the next one. Take care.